Hey guys, welcome back to my channel Learn and Fun with Dia. Today we're going to read a chapter from the book Honeysuckle Grade 6 Fair Play. So let's start. Jummun Shaikh and Algu Chaudhry were good friends. So strong was their bond of friendship that when either of them went away from the village, the other looked after his family. Both were greatly respected in the village. This means that Jumman and Algu were very good friends. Their bond was so strong that when one of them went away from the village, the other would look after his family. And both of them were respected in the village. Let's read the next paragraph. Jumman had an old aunt who had some property. This she transferred to him on the understanding that she would stay with him and he would look after her. The arrangement worked well for a couple of years. Then the situation changed. Jumman and his family were tired of the old relative. Jumman became an indifferent to her as his wife, who grudged even the little food that the old lady wanted every day. She swallowed these insults along with her food for a few months, but patience has its limits. And this means that Jumon had an old aunt who had a little bit property and she transferred that property to him, and she thought that Jumon will look after her, and this arrangement worked for a couple of years, but the situation had changed. Jumman and his family were tired of the old aunt, the old relative, and Jumman would act like she is a stranger in its home, and his wife would also give him a little food and some insults, which the old aunt would swallow with her food. And the aunt was patient, but patience also has its limits. Okay, now let's read the third paragraph. One day, she spoke to Jumman. My son, it is now obvious that I am not wanted in your house. Kindly give me a monthly allowance so that I can set up a separate kitchen. My wife knows best how to run the house. Be patient, said Jumman shamelessly. This made his aunt very angry, and she decided to take her case to the village panchayat. This line means that one day the old aunt spoke to Jumman and said, my son, it is obvious that she is not wanted in their house, and she asked Jumman for a monthly allowance so that she could make a separate kitchen. But Jumman replied shamelessly in a very bad manner that his wife knows best how to run the house. Be patient. And this line made his aunt very angry. And then the aunt decided to take her case to the village panchayat. And for many days, now I have started this fourth paragraph. For many days, the old lady was seen talking to the villagers, explaining her case and seeking their support. Some sympathized with her, others laughed at her, few others advised her to make it up with her nephew and his wife. At last, she came to Algu Chaudhry and spoke to him. You know, Chachi, Jumun is my best friend. How can I go against him? Algu said. But is it right, my son, to keep mum and not say what you consider just and fair? Pleaded the old lady. Come to the panchayat and speak the truth, she said. Algu didn't reply, but her words kept ringing in his ears. Now let me explain this one. For many days, in the starting of the many days, the old lady, the old aunt, was talking to the villagers and explaining her case and seeking support from the villagers. And some of the villagers sympathized her, some laughed, and others advised her to talk to his nephew and his wife, which was Jumman and his wife. And at last, She came to Algu Chaudhary, which was Jummun's very good friend, and spoke to him. But Jummun said that Chachi the old aunt, that Jummun is my best friend. How can I go against him? He was thinking that it was his best friend. How could he go against him? And then the aunt said, "But is it right, my son, to keep mum and not say what you consider just and fair?" The aunt was trying to say that go towards just and fair. And then she said, "Come to the panchayat and speak the truth," she said. And then Algu didn't reply, but the aunt's words kept ringing in his ears. Then now start part 2. The panchayat was held the same evening under an old banyan tree. Jumal stood up and said, "The voice of Punch is the voice of God. Let my aunt nominate the head Punch. I will abide by her decision." This means that the panchayat was held the same evening under an old banyan tree, the same evening when the aunt asked Algu Chaudhary for help. Jubal stood up and said, "The voice of Punch is the voice of God. That whatever the Punch says, I will abide and follow it like I follow the God. Let my aunt nominate the head Punch, that she'll decide the head Punch and I will follow her decision." Now let's start with the 6th paragraph. The Punch knows neither friend nor enemy. "What do you say to Algu Chaudhary?" the old lady announced. "Fine," replied Jummon, hiding his jaw over this unexpected piece of luck. "Chachi, you are aware of my friendship with Jummon," said Algu. "I know that," replied the aunt, "but I also know that you will not kill your conscience for the sake of friendship. God lives in the heart of the Punch, and his voice is the voice of God." And the old lady explained her case. Jummon said, "Algu, you and I are old friends. Your aunt is as dear to me as you. Now I am a Punch. You and your aunt are equal before me. What have you to say in your defense?" "3 years ago," began Jummon, "my aunt transferred her property to me and promised to support her as long as she lived. I have done all I could. There have been couple of quarrels between my wife and her, but I can't stop it now. Now my aunt is claiming a monthly allowance from me. This is not possible. That's all I have to say." Now let's start with the 7th paragraph. Juman has cross-examined by Algu and others. Then Algu announced, "We have gone into the matter carefully. In our opinion, Juman must pay his aunt a monthly allowance, or else the property goes back to her." This means that Juman was cross-examined by Algu and the other Punch, and then Algu announced that they had gone the matter carefully, but in their opinion that Juman must pay his aunt a monthly allowance, or else the property would go back to her and Juman would not have the property to him. Now let's start with the 8th paragraph. Now the two friends were seldom seen together. The bond of friendship between them was broken. In fact, Juman was Algu's enemy and wanted his revenge. Now that after this that Juman had betrayed him, they would be seen together. That was a big shock. Their bond of friendship was broken. In fact, Juman wanted revenge from Algu as Algu was his enemy. Now let's start part 3. Days passed, and as ill luck would have it, Algu Chaudhary found himself in a tight spot. One of his 5 pair of bullocks died, and he sold the other to Sabju Sahu, a cart driver of the village. The understanding was that Sahu would pay the price of the bullock in a month's time. It so happened that the bullock died within a month. This paragraph says that days had passed and the ill luck, the bad luck would have it that Algu Chaudhary found himself in a tight spot. He was uh, very hard and he had very less money, and his one of his bullocks had died and the other he had sold to a cart driver of the village, which was Sabju Sahu. And they said that after a month Sabju Sahu will pay the price of the bullock to Algu. But the bullock had died within a month. Now let's start with the 10th paragraph. Several months after the bullock's death, Algu reminded Sahu of the money he hadn't yet paid. Sahu got very annoyed. I can't pay you a single penny for the wretched beast you sold me. He bought us nothing but ruin. I have a bullock, use it for a month and then return it to me. No money for the dead bullock, he said angrily. This means that several months after the bullock's death, Algu reminded Sahu about the money which he had paid to Algu, but Sahu got very annoyed and said that he couldn't pay literally even a penny for the bullock which had died within a month, and it brought us nothing but ruin. It got us nothing and only it ruined our money. And he said that I have a bullock. You can take that for a month and use it and return it to me. But you will get no money for the dead bullock, he said angrily. Algo decided to refer the case to the panchayat for a second time in a few months. Preparations for holding the panchayat were made, and both the parties started meeting people seeking their support. This means that Algu had decided to refer the case of the bullock to the panchayat, and for the second time in few months, preparations for the panchayat was being made, and the both parties, Algu side and Sahu side, were seeking support by meeting people. The panchayat was held under the old banyan tree. Algu stood up and said, "The voice of the Pach is the voice of God. Let Sahu nominate the head Pach. I will abide by his decision." This means that the panchayat was held under the old banyan tree like before, and Algu stood up and said, "The voice of the Pach is the voice of God. And let Sahu nominate the head. Let Sahu decide the head Pach and I will follow his decision." Next line. Sahu saw his charts and proposed the name of Jumbun. Algu's heart sank and he turned pale. But what could he do? This means Sahu saw his charts and proposed the name of Jumbun, as he knew that Jumbun and Algu had a fight. Algu's heart had sagged and his face had turned pale and white. That what could he do? And next, the moment Jumbun became head Pach, he realized his responsibility as judge and the dignity of his office. Could he, seated in the high place, have his revenge now? He thought and thought. No, he must not allow his personal feelings to come in the way of speaking the truth and doing justice. This means the moment Jumbun became the head Pach, he noticed his responsibility as the judge, the leader, and the dignity of his office. And he thought, could he, seated in the high place, have his revenge on Algu now? He thought and thought repeatedly. No, he must not allow his personal feelings to come in the way of speaking the truth and doing justice. He thought that his personal feelings, his fight with Algu, would come in the way of speaking the truth and doing justice. Now let's do the 15th paragraph. Both Algu and Sahu stated their cases. They were cross-examined by, and the case was considered deeply. Then Jumbun stood up and announced, "It is our opinion that Sahu should pay Algu the price of the bullock." When Sahu bought the bullock, it suffered from no disability or disease. The death of the bullock was unfortunate, and Algu cannot be blamed for it. Algu could contain his feelings, and he stood up and said loudly over and over again, "Victory to the Panchayat! This is justice. God lives in the voice of the Panch." And this means that Algu and Sahu started to explain their cases about the bullock, and they were cross-examined, and this case was considered deeply. And after some time, Jubal stood up and announced, "In our opinion, that Sahu should pay the full price to Algu of the bullock, as when Sahu had bought the bullock, it did not suffer from any disability or disease. And the death of the bullock was unfortunate. It was not said, and Algu cannot be blamed for it." At last, after hearing this, Algu could not contain his feelings, and he stood up and started shouting loudly over and over again, "Victory to the Panchayat, as the victory is in the Panchayat. This is justice, and God lives in the voice of the Panch." Last line. Soon after, Juman came to Algu, embraced him, and said, "Since the last Panchayat, I had become your enemy. Today I realized what it meant to be a Panch. A Panch has no friend nor enemy, who knows only justice. Let no deviate from the path of justice and truth for friendship or enmity." Algu embraced his friend and wept, and his tears washed away all the dirt and misunderstanding between them. This means that after some time, Jumon had come to Algu and embraced him and said that since the last Panchayat he had become Algu's enemy, and today he realized that to be a Panch has no friend or enemy. He only knows justice and fear, that no one deviate from the path of justice and the truth for friendship or enmity. Algu embraced his friend and wept, and the tears washed away all the dirt, means all the misunderstanding between them, and they became very good friends after that. This was a story told by Prem Chand. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.